What I'm playing on your screen right now is a variation of a hip throw. I know it's arguably a kataguruma, but it's generally referred to as koshinage. I'm showing you this because it comes from Aikido, but as far as I know, it isn't on any official curriculum anywhere. The man who invented it is the one you're seeing on screen now, and he's been deceased for probably closing in on 2 decades. I've never seen this throw in the wild, despite searching pretty hard for it, even here in Japan. The best I've found are people who have heard of other people who have seen it. Maybe there is a dojo out there still practicing it, but so far it has completely evaded me. Of course, I could just try and copy it from the video, but, video is never a substitute for a good teacher. So why am I showing you this? Because this is Aikido. A trend I've really gotten pretty burnt out on recently is that people seem to forget what styles actually are. All a style is a formula for solving one or more martial problems in a given particular context. Often, it's even just one specific guy's systematized solution as passed down and interpreted by successors. I bring this up because I'm seeing a lot of X style sucks type crap around, and I know it's been around forever. As always, this is the internet being the way it is, but it's kind of interesting to me that this particular trend still hasn't worn out, despite just a little bit of thought making you realize it's kind of stupid. Let's just take karate, for example. Let's say someone says, karate sucks. The issue is that this doesn't really tell me anything. Which style? When? Whose dojo? They suck at what exactly? What is the competitive format that I assume you're referencing? There is about as much regional and personal and competitive variation across time in karate as there is with stuff like food. And of course, this is just martial arts in general. There is so much diversity of thought and application in these styles. So when you just use karate, that doesn't tell me anything. Nor am I gatekeeping this information, by the way. A little bit of time on old Google Sensei will reveal to you many of these details to help you sharpen your questions. The thing is that when people say X style is bad, it usually just demonstrates that they don't know much about the style. They didn't do their due diligence, or they haven't trained it seriously enough to realize that styles are not uniform monoliths. I think style, in quotes, as an analytical tool is honestly only useful as a shorthand. When I say Aikido, most people know generally what I'm talking about. That is useful, but a concerning amount of people, often in bad faith, I think, presume that the generalization I'm making so that we can communicate is the whole story. It is not. All martial arts, although especially martial arts that are closer to their folk roots, always have a ton of variation. I've been in Aikido dojos with heavy striking regimens. I've been in Aikido dojos that kick a lot. I've been in others, like in the opening clip, that have techniques that aren't on the mainstream curriculum at all. Not all of them have been good, but plenty have been better than what I generally think of as the quote-unquote typical Aikido. But keep in mind that even based on what you're seeing online as like the typical standard stuff, there is variation within that system too, and not just a little, a lot. Beyond this, I just find that the use of the concept of a style allows for a lot of really disingenuous analysis. One of my age-old pet peeves is when a traditional martial artist does well, we'll say using some kung fu system out there, take your pick, and there are a dozen comments on a video saying, "That doesn't look like kung fu." First off, if the competitor learned it from a kung fu system and then adapted it to compete, it's still kung fu. Second, why is the audience the arbiter of the competitor's style? If the competitor says he learned it from Kung Fu, it's Kung Fu. Third, in a world where the mainstream practice is to evaluate a martial art based on competitive functionalism, why is it only traditional martial arts that appear to be judged on the basis of aesthetics when they actually are functional. It's very strange. Now, look, some of this is damn well traditional martial arts' own fault. I think a lot of them have over-branded their systems, and this is how you get some very stupid crap like, oh, in this version of Aikido, we have our wrist at a 42.5-degree angle, so what you're doing is completely wrong. Give me back your belt. And yeah, that's some hyper-specific, arbitrary cult nonsense meant to differentiate the art from whatever school is down the street. Frankly, I see that as a lack of faith in one's own product more than anything, or perhaps a lack of faith in oneself to productively adapt the art beyond needlessly rigid stipulations, usually from some old guy who isn't even practicing anymore, or even worse, is already dead. But on the other hand, I think a lot of external criticism uses the concept of styles in what I am forced to assume is deliberately stupid ways. I used to train with a guy who was very into the whole, there are only so many ways to move the human body, therefore all martial arts are essentially the same type narrative. I only really buy into that like 75%, but that's for a different video. My reason for bringing up this particular anecdote is that this same person would swear up and down that wrestling invented the single leg, and that judo is the hip throw progenitor, and so on. So if your kung fu style, heaven forbid, shot in on the legs for any reason, it was an admission that you needed Western wrestling to bail out your trash art, at least in this guy's estimation. The thing is that I see this pretty regularly. It's not that uncommon. That's not kung fu, it's kickboxing. That's not aikido, that's judo. Yet a lot of these guys have never kickboxed or never done judo. And a lot of the people who are talking about the one thing looking like another thing have never done the kung fu or the aikido. They wouldn't know about differences if they did exist. A lot of times they don't, because guess what? A hip throw is just a hip throw. But a hip throw that you learn from Aikido is Aikido by definition. And again, to be honest, I think the people saying these things probably know better. If they don't, then education is truly in dire straits. But I frankly just think they are being dishonest or biased or some combination of the two. Anyway, I don't really want to belabor my point too much longer here. I just wanted to put this out because I really do see this sort of trend a lot, and I'm not all that angry about it. I'm just disappointed. If you want to criticize something, at least do your due diligence and read up on it a bit. To finish up, I do want to say that I find the style versus style formulation to be really kind of absurd in the year of our Lord 2025. Another trend I do often get exposed to is the drop that style against MMA and see if it works. As if any pure style wins against MMA in MMA rules. That was kind of the whole point of the early UFCs. The person who trains to have more combative options is generally the one that wins. I don't know if you've ever seen the UFC, but I assume that the people making these kinds of arguments have. Judging a martial system should really always be about measuring it against its own claims. If a system claims to be able to toss men twice their size across the room and it can't deliver on that claim, then yeah, it deserves to be torn to shreds. And please don't run defense for those kinds of styles with the guy who failed, he hasn't been trained in the true secrets of the style yet. That's nonsense when an art fails to deliver. The whole point of systematization and curriculums is to pass knowledge on effectively. The meta of true martial deception has been dead since we started having video cameras in our pockets, maybe even earlier, arguably. There isn't any real reason to hide things from your students anymore. The flip side of that, though, is saying judo sucks against MMA, as an example, when no one in judo is training to win in MMA. No one in judo cares. People in judo want to win at judo. That's a really stupid comparison to make. You know who the most likely people are to win in MMA? The guys that train MMA. This bizarro thing where everyone believes a martial art is naturally on a pipeline to MMA to prove itself for some reason is just peak goofiness. It's poor analysis. Again, if you want to give proper criticisms of a martial art, I'm all for that. A huge slice of my channel is me taking the piss out of Aikido, from a loving place to be sure, but it is still me taking the piss out of Aikido. I'm all in on criticism, but you have to judge martial arts on the basis of their own claims. You have to assess martial artists on the basis of their own training, not what you think their training looks like. And you have to understand that there is the martial art that you popularly are going to see online and perhaps on TV, and the huge diversity of variation and hidden gems you'll only ever get access to if you actively deep dive that style, often requiring you to stand up, give the keyboard a rest, and go find a dojo or gym to see what they are all about. I'm not really sure how analysis has gotten so disappointing in the martial arts space, but holy moly, folks, it makes me worried about how people do research into things that matter more than this niche space. I really hope that people are just being disingenuous and they know better, because if they aren't, that's a concerning social trend just in general, not just for martial arts. Anyway, just a quick upload today. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.